Brambro back with some Grand Tactician Civil War. And as I often say at the start of an episode, there's a little bit to talk about. There has been another little update to the 1.06. We are in 1.0628 now. And it's not huge, but there are a few things in it. Let's see. There's been a little bit of change to the way that blockaded ports are shown. For one thing, just graphically, this little burning icon, they changed that a little bit. And they've decoupled blockade status from this icon. For the longest time, I thought that this icon meant these little flames things. And it was a little bit different. They changed the icon itself, just graphically. But we had something like this before, and I always thought that meant, for a long time, I thought that meant that it was getting blockaded. But then over time, you'd often see that little flame or explosion icon on a port or another IIP. It could happen inland as well. That didn't seem to have any immediate cause, right? I'd see a Union IAP somewhere, like in Indiana or wherever, with that little symbol on it, and I didn't have anybody nearby raiding or anything like that. So I think that this little flame icon just basically means that in some way this IIP is getting affected by trade warfare. Maybe to a very small degree. Just the policies and projects. It's not necessarily a fleet or a raiding army nearby doing that to that IIP. It's just kind of more of a, hey, there's trade warfare going on, just abstractly. I don't know for sure. That's my best guess on what this little flame icon means. So it can be reflecting a nearby blockade, but not necessarily. I think there's other things that cause this as well, and I'm not super smart on exactly what those are and are not. But the blockade is shown slightly different now. Here on this little bar just underneath, over to the left, there's this little bit here, and this has a tooltip which shows the blockade status. Okay, so now we can see that we're up to 20%. This port started at 18%, then it was 19%, and now we're up to 20% on these ports over here in southern New England. While on the topic of blockade, we've seen in our strategic objectives that the effect of our blockade has been enormous and very lopsided in the CSA's favor, just with that one little port blockading those 6 or 7 ports up there in southern New England. That's it. This is apparently I don't know how to articulate this. This is apparently somewhat bugged. There was a mention in a dev post that the blockade losses, we had a problem with that in 1.0627. They're not quite right, and it's already fixed now in 1.0628. That's all it said, so I don't know the details, but apparently either this number should not be as big as it is on the Union side, or should not be as small as it is on the Confederate side, or a combination of the two. Now, I think these are cumulative numbers over the course of the campaign, so they're not going to drop. However, they're going to stay there since part of the campaign did occur in 1.0627. But whatever that anomaly was in blockade losses should no longer be occurring as we go forward. That said, I'm still going to come up here and blockade New York at some point. Okay, so they did that with the... let me turn that front line off. Oh, yeah. these little windows over here, they lengthen them so that you don't have to scroll quite as much, can see more of what's in them. So that's kind of cool. I like that. And it's not just the heat maps. It's all of them. It's the armies and navies and stuff. So this one is a little bit bigger. That's cool. There's all my little scouty ships there. Okay. Back to Norfolk here. So we took Fort Monroe in the last episode, which is also burning. So maybe this just indicates there's been some damage and it needs some repair. But maybe that's what it means. And we ostensibly we defeated this Atlantic blockading squadron, and they were supposed to retreat. They are not blockading anymore, so at least that's happening. And they have 11 of 11 disabled ships. But they haven't actually moved. Now maybe that's... I think that might be because there may not actually be any ships here. Because the way that naval has worked up till now through now and for the foreseeable future is that you park a squadron somewhere, like a blockading fleet, right? Here's a good... Well, let's just look at our blockading fleet. I've parked this fleet up here, and there's several ships in it. All of those ships aren't necessarily present there at the same time continuously. You know, they're steamers. They burn coal. Occasionally, they have to go back to port to get more coal. And so these squadrons, and this is true for all the Union blockading squadrons too, they will rotate ships in and out of here. You know, they'll send a couple ships back, get some coal, come back up, and then send some others. There's not always necessarily 8 ships here. Sometimes it shows that. Let me see if I get lucky here, or if it's going to make a liar out of me. Yeah. No. They're all showing grayed out because I just loaded up the game and I haven't advanced time. And so this is one of the things that the game doesn't actually save. It just fixes itself right when you first start running time. So all of these ships are moving to the fleet ETA 0 days. So as soon as I hit the play button, they'll all pop in there. Okay, so, all right. And a lot of times even before I start recording, I will run the time just a few hours, just because, you know, it gets the economy going and all that sort of thing. I'm not doing that now because we have a pending siege at Louisville that even just a couple hours, you know, we could lose it. So I'm keeping it paused. So it's possible that there's not actually any ships here. They've gone back to repair. We'll see. If it's still sitting there after this upcoming battle, I may have to bring this Hampton Roads squadron back out and go beat it up again. Just to make it retreat. I doubt there will actually be a battle, just to, you know, just to force it to go back to port. And we had something like that back down by New Orleans earlier. Okay, enough about that, I think. In recent episode, I was going on about how pre-war forts and player-built forts are a little bit different. We do have this little fort icon back on Fort Monroe now, so that's cool. And we can see all the guns that eventually should be here. But on the player-built forts, we don't have that icon. However, and I should have thought of this at the time, really. So we don't have this icon, so we cannot upgrade, apparently, And we also can't see the guns in it, is what I was saying. However, one of the commenters astutely picked up that you click on the fort, and here there's a tooltip here for the guns that does show what they have, and it's showing 20 guns, but it's 10 64-pounders, 64-pound rifles, I might add, and 10 32-pound cannon. Right? So I do have an artillery battalion in here, but it's just default 6-pounder field guns. And that's not reflected here. So basically, Tier 1 forts come with 20 large artillery now, which they did not before 1.06. And that does raise the question, since they're not reflected here, do these artillery, if you put extra artillery into a fort, does that matter at all now? I don't know. Let me just show what I got in there. Let's see, military, and that was Fort Wright. That's the siege we have going on at Louisville. Still the siege we have going on at Louisville. Right, yeah. See, this Starks battalion has got 15 guns of 6-pounder field guns, and that's not reflected in that 20. So we really have 35 guns in that fort. Or do we? Is the game counting those 6-pounder field guns whenever a siege happens? I don't know the answer to that. All right, enough about that. There was a note in the 1.0628 that they've cut down on the AI's propensity to spam supply depots all over the place. You know, typically they move, they stop. As soon as they stop, boom, the first thing they do is build yet another supply depot. Which was probably pretty good AI behavior programming up through 1.05. However, you know, and then they didn't change it. AI kept doing that. Maybe that's part of the huge problems that the AI has had in 1.06, because depots are a lot more expensive now. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that'll help. Or if they're not, you know, but that remains to be seen. If they're not going to build a lot of depots the way they used to, then how well is are the AI armies going to deal with supply issues? Right? Because we've had to do some kind of semi-creative things of, you know, bouncing back and forth between supply depots for artillery ammo, trying to use IIPs more, spamming a lot of markets in order to improve infrastructure so that supply flow is better to the depots that we do have and to the IIPs in the frontline areas. So is the AI going to do those things? I don't know. I'm fairly skeptical. All right, so there was that change. And then finally, before I get things rolling, in the last battle we fought, which was somewhere, yeah, Marietta, we captured quite a few folks here. And we captured the entire Fort Monroe garrison. So between those two battles, over 7,000 prisoners. And we saw that not a single one of them actually went into our POW camps. Okay, and that it's just clearly not supposed to work like that. That has been brought up in the Steam discussions, and the devs noted, oh, okay, yeah, we'll take a look at that. Nothing substantive. Don't know how quick they'll fix it, although they've been kind of jumping on those things fairly quickly. So we may see a change to that soon in another little update to the update. But the other thing that occurred was we captured a fair number of weapons in those battles, and it turns out that let's go to the weapons here. We captured enough Hall rifles for a brigade. That's pretty cool, because this is a really nice weapon in the game. I think I've talked about this weapon before in prior campaigns, but not in this one. It's an interesting weapon. It's an interesting weapon. It's a very it is a rifle. It's an early rifle, and it's considered a breech loader. So it's got a nice rate of fire, 8 rounds per minute, 400-yard range, and if I'm not mistaken, very good accuracy. This is a great weapon in Grand Tactician Civil War, which was why earlier in the campaign I was really interested to see if Legacy Rifles included this weapon for production. It does not. Probably for good reason, because it's a little bit OP, given how early you can get it and its statistics. They probably have this rifle not quite modeled very well, because it's so good. It kind of begs the question, well, you know, if these Hall rifles were so great, why didn't either side, you know, put them back into production, keep using them? And there are answers for that. Historically, this rifle was probably not as good as it appears to have been modeled in game. And I'm not an expert on this stuff at all. You know, my knowledge kind of extends to skimming a Wikipedia article. And I know there's people who know a lot more than that. I'm kind of, you know, one knowledgeable commentator on this stuff. I'm kind of interested to hear their thoughts on it. But just kind of the new low level of knowledge take on it is the way this thing worked was it was still kind of a muzzle loading design, in that you still had to put the powder and the ball into the chamber from the front, just like a muzzle loader. But this breech assembly was on a hinge, and you'd fire, and then you'd pop this chamber up like this, and then you'd load it from the front, just like a muzzle loader, except it's, you know, instead of having to have a ramrod several feet long and push everything down through that rifle barrel, it was just, you know, the ramrod was just like a few inches long, and you just put it directly into the chamber, and then you'd snap it back down in place, fire again. So that's kind of why it's considered a breech loader, and it worked. It did have a higher rate of fire than traditional muzzle loading weapons from the muzzle of the barrel. The issue that this weapon had, however, was the machining standards of the time, and this wasn't just like something right before the war. This thing goes back to 1819, I think. And earlier in the 19th century, the U.S. Army did have a fair number of these. They were used a lot, apparently, in the Seminole Wars during the 1830s. It didn't really catch on because it wasn't very popular because the machining of this thing was such that this breech in here, and I'm sure it just got worse with extended use, wasn't very tight. And you'd fire, but a lot of the power of the ignition of the powder would be lost out the edges. And so a lot of the power of the weapon was kind of dissipated right there in front of the guy's face. So it probably wasn't all that terribly pleasant a weapon to actually use for that. And that resulted in the thing kind of losing a lot of power. And so even though it was rifled, it didn't have very good penetration, very good killing power. A lot of oomph was lost off of that projectile. So what they probably should have done with this weapon was probably lessen its firepower stat a little bit. It's not shown in the tooltips, but firepower is shown in the manual. And most infantry weapons carry kind of the standard firepower is 1. And that's true for the Hall rifle as well. Maybe it should be something more like 0.8 or something like that. And its accuracy, it maybe should be a little bit lower than it is. But that's not the case. This is actually a great weapon. It's got standard firepower. It's got very good accuracy. It's got 400-yard range, and it's got 8 rounds a minute. And we've got 3,600 of these things. So yeah, I'm going to put these in a brigade somewhere. Absolutely. We also captured, because I had gone and put out a bunch of rifles to all the brigades, and I just barely had enough. So it looks like we've captured another couple brigades worth of Springfield rifle muskets. That's awesome. And I think we got a few thousand Mississippi rifles as well. So we've got a few more rifles there. Right now, there aren't anybody anywhere in the armies that still have smoothbores. So the only ones I'm going to run right out and replace I'm going to give somebody the Hall rifles. We also captured some artillery, but nothing is really jumping out at me as having come up in numbers. So I think we probably just... I don't know what we captured. Even the 6-pounder field guns, I kind of think I had 686 before. After replacing all the, with all the Napoleons. So I'm not even sure they were 6-pound field guns. Maybe they were. Yeah. Anyway, there's a little bit about the Hall rifles. Standing by for more amplifying comments on that weapon in the comments. All right. So we are about to fight a battle here because the Army of the Ohio came down here, and they are not just they're not besieging Fort Gardner. They are assaulting Fort Gardner. And even though Ewell's Corps is involved in this siege, or this action, as it were, our current situation is, okay, that's updated. It's kind of in the middle. At the end of the last episode, even with Ewell involved, it was showing completely 100%, Union was just going to take it any second. Now we're in the middle. All right, well, that's okay. 48% chance of victory. I don't trust this thing up here. This little tooltip up here, near the top of the campaign map, it'll kind of, when you hover over it, it'll give you a chance of victory. And then you've got this, with the siege actually open, you have this number down here showing the balance. This display and this tooltip up here are often significantly different from each other. And in the absence of any reason to think otherwise, it seems to me that this display down at the bottom of the siege window is probably the more accurate of the two, and this is the one that I like to go by. In any case, it's not a Confederate advantage. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to transform this into a tactical battle. And we've got about, between the... So this is showing that we've got about 25,000 men, 63 guns. However, that's including the garrison, right? So the the guns in the garrison and the men in the garrison, when we transfer to the tactical map, I don't think we're going to have these. So we're a little bit down from what's shown here. But it should give us a defensive situation with the Federals attacking us, even though we theoretically are assaulting them in a counterattack. We'll see what happens. We'll just pop in here, and maybe the game will make a liar out of me there as well. Interesting quote there by Harvey Hill referring to Meade. An interesting point about this, I want to try to say this before it loads. Hill served with the Army of Northern Virginia fairly early in the war. He wasn't there by the time Meade took command of the Army of the Potomac. So Hill's view of George Meade would have been during the stretches of during the periods when Meade was a brigade and then a divisional and then a corps commander up through Chancellorsville. And in those roles, yeah, Meade was pretty good. One could have, well, I mean, he was pretty good as an army commander too. But he got to be an army commander because he had come up through and done a nice job in all of those subordinate levels. All right, what do we got here? Well, it's giving us a meeting situation. So there you go. Made a liar out of me. It's a meeting situation. We're on the Springfield map. There's one unowned objective. However, it is right on our deployment line. So we could essentially deploy right along in here and just immediately take the objective at the beginning of the battle. But also notice, these are flat spots along the deployment arc, indicating that the Federal deployment zones are butting right up against here. So first things first, let's just take a unit here. Let me get yeah, well, there we go. Let's bring up one of our cavalry. Let's just plop him here and see if we have any vision. On, boom, they're right there. Okay. Okay, Federal spotted during the deployment phase, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of marching. So anyway, I'll bring the army up, get them into line, and this one's going to kick off pretty quickly. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so I've got the guys deployed. Had just enough engineering points for about 3 brigades worth of breastworks right in here along the Stony Bluff, which is wooded. So just let's go from left to right. Fry's division. Fry had done well in brigade command in one of the other armies, so I elevated him to divisional command in this new corps. Fry's division is over here. They are Springfield rifle armed, and they are in woods, and they're just going to have to deal with this end of the flank. I don't have any reserves on this side, so hopefully they can do well enough. I believe pretty much all the brigades are already close enough that I don't think anyone's going to be able to put skirmishers out. Maybe over here on the far end, and maybe over here. But I'm not going to want to put skirmishers out over here on the right flank. The main line is in the center. That is Anderson, Richard Anderson. So he's got breastworks here on either side of the road, right at the objective, and one brigade under Clark in reserve, because it's going to be pretty hot in here. I would expect that one or the other of these brigades is going to take a lot of fire and need to be relieved on the line. Okay. And then we've got this kind of ravine. It's open, but there's a creek ravine running down through here. And I've got coke. Someone, I'd been saying cog. Someone mentioned to me that coke is the way that this gentleman's name was pronounced. And so these two brigades are across the creek. Doles' brigade forming the right end of the main line. And then Rhodes's brigade is across the creek, and he's really there supporting our far right on the other side of the creek. I chose this brigade because it is Mississippi rifle armed, and I want them to be able to reach out and cover this open area in front of the guns without obstructing their line of sight. So that's why he's placed where he is. And the idea is, there was really no good place to put artillery over here, both for elevation reasons and because of the woods. So I put the guns over here. There's a little bit of high ground here. They're right in the edge of these woods on this slope. And they've got pretty good coverage. They've got good coverage of these federal units all through here. So the idea is for them to kind of break up the federal left, supported by and protected by Rhodes's brigade, which is covering the open ground in front of them with their Mississippis. And then I've got both of the cavalry brigades over here on the far right, and they are dismounted and in loose order. And they're armed with Merrill carbines. So kind of the idea is that the cav and the fast firing carbines can break up this portion of the Federal Army pretty quickly, which should serve to protect the right of the main defense here on Stone's Bluff. Now the downside of the fast firing carbines is that they'll burn through that ammo pretty quick. So this isn't going to, they can't do an extended firefight over here. So they need to break up Harney and maybe these brigades pretty quickly in conjunction with the artillery. And then they're going to kind of be spent as far as real combat, as far as firepower. Of course, they can mount up and they can still charge during the retreat phase. All right, that's how I've got it set up, and let's see how it works out. It is perfectly possible that, the Federals can redeploy too. As soon as we hit play, they may not be here. They may set back. So let's see what happens. Play. Boom! No, we got... it's on! Okay. I think we can do 2x. Alright, let's go ahead and push this cav forward. Oh. Yeah, Harney wants none of that. He's like, oh, get across the creek. I don't blame him, to be honest. Okay, so basically our right is pretty well protected. No, there's a Federal cavalry already. We got somebody wavering over here. See if we can get skirmishers out from this brigade to go I can't get them selected. Yeah, screw that. Pull them back in. No long range. Looks like Anderson's guys are doing fine in the center. It's because he's taken all this artillery fire. That's why he's wavering. Let's just fall him back just at... Fuck. He's gone. Okay, this artillery is unsupported now, at least. Okay, let's get these guys rotated. Deliver flanking fire on this assault here. Artillery's all still got fire. Let's move the cav up. I thought I had those guys in loose order. They apparently not. Okay. Yeah, Brown's taking some losses there, no doubt. And Jackson's not doing too bad. I wonder if that's a Kentucky brigade. See if we can get these guys up like so. They got to cross a creek. I'm not loving that. Same over here. Okay. Rose is firing now. That's good. Okay, I'm gonna back Brown off the put Clark up here. There's more Federal brigades back here. Knowles is getting a little toasty. Things are going our way, though. We've taken 1,700 casualties, but the enemy's taken 3,700. Okay. Get up there on that other artillery battalion. Brown's backing out. Clark is sort of moving up. Okay, but this Federal Brigade is falling back. Okay, Sims' cavalry is engaged. He's firing. Yeah, they're bugging out. En masse now. Keep going. Alright, those guys. Yeah, it's really taking a long time for Clark to move up onto the line because of the woods, which means it's going to take a long time for him to even advance. Brown's brigade has taken almost 1,000, on the verge of breaking. Okay, they're retreating now. That was pretty quick. Doles has taken a lot of casualties as well. Which is to be expected. I mean, we lined everybody up at point-blank range. Meanwhile, Jackson's taken, it's been pretty light. It's been pretty light for him. Matter of fact, Jackson, why don't you just go ahead and advance? Alright, let's remount the cav. That other, yeah. Who's this? Henry Davidson. And low loss resilience. Didn't really lose that many guys. It was because he was taking the artillery fire, I think is why. Davidson will probably get defamed. We need to get to 24%. Early in the war, typically you need 22, but as military experience goes up on both sides, that threshold for major victory very slowly creeps up over time. So here in 1862, we're needing 24% casualties for a major. And they're retreating all over the place. We can't catch those guys. It's really just about the cav now. Okay, that cav is done. See if we can just wipe them out. Maybe. Maybe not. Sometimes they just stick with them, and a lot of times they don't. You have to keep telling them to charge. Oh, there we go. I think that battalion is gone. Where are we at here? 23%? I might regret this. You know what? Don't even do that. And go ahead. Go shoot him. You just need a few. I might have cost myself a major right there at the tail end. That's alright. They still have to retreat. Fort Gardner and Louisville are saved. I don't want to charge them because they're not broken, and that could actually kind of backfire on us. Uh-oh. What's he doing now? What are you doing now? This bodes ill for the Cav. Oh, there's one broken. Okay. That alone was enough to go into major. I just hope the Cav doesn't break right here on this ford. Weird things happen. Nah, I think he's just racking up melee. Which is fine. That's fine too. That'll count as casualties. Yeah, it's 25%. All right. So, that's Mansfield, Army of the Ohio. We've tangled with him before. He lost all of his guns. 4,200 of his infantry, 1,400 of his cavalry. We took a total of 2,000. All of it in the infantry. One cav guy got hurt. All right. Let's see how we did here. On prisoners. Alright, we took 627 prisoners. Cool. Not that they're going to go into the POW camps. We know that. And, yeah. And it was the Cav that took all those prisoners. That makes sense. Koch's division, 15, almost 1,600 casualties. He was on the right. Fry on the left, 477. And then Anderson in the middle. So these numbers all make sense. And 128 casualties inflicted by the artillery. Which, given the way Artie is in this game, and given how short that battle was, and how few units they actually had shots on, that's not bad. Okay. So there you have it. Louisville defended. Fort Gardner saved. Huzzah. And another major Confederate victory in the Ohio Valley. I think it's kind of neat how you get Kentucky to secede, and it kind of transfers the major theater of war to the Ohio River. That's kind of neat from a kind of alternate history standpoint. And I've already mentioned several times, I think we fought more battles in Ohio than we have in Virginia. And Fort Gardner is on the Ohio side of the river. Nope, Davidson did not get defamed, apparently. One of the Union generals did. Villepigue. I don't know how that's pronounced. Villepigue? 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 I don't know. But he caught some fame as a Cav guy. Alright, I'm cool with that. And we captured 3,800 more small arms and 22 artillery. Neato. Yeah, right at the beginning of the episode, I was like, I want to give these Hall's rifles to somebody. Obviously, I should have given them to one of the brigades in that battle, and I completely didn't think of doing it that quickly. Okay, so Mansfield will be retreating. And that little threat is momentarily taken care of. So, how are we doing over here? Still got the Army of the Potomac in a defensive stance right in front of Grafton. Beauregard's army is over here, hopefully getting some artillery ammo. No? Do I have my supply turned on? I do not. Yeah, time's gonna run for that to display properly. Yeah, Hardy is still low on artillery ammo. He's come up a little bit. He was at 24, now he's at 38%. And how's Garnett doing? Garnett's got 74%. Alright. So we have this situation to deal with. I'm kind of thinking, there's several Federal armies up in here. I am kind of thinking that Hardy is probably going to remain in Beauregard's army for quite a while operating up in this area. And then we've got kind of multiple armies through here. I think I'm going to take Ewell's Corps, and I'm just going to make it part of the Army of Tennessee under Sidney Johnston. Because I don't think I want either Hill's Corps or Ewell's Corps straying too far from Cincinnati, Covington, and Louisville. I do have a few troops at the Western Department. There's 16,000 men in Bragg's command at Recruitment Command, and those do not include the all the new James Rifle battalions that I just ordered up. Those are actually directly back here underneath Cooper. So there's about 16,000 men. I think there's like 4 or 5 infantry brigades. And I think what I can do is I've got another infantry brigade here in the 1st Engineering Corps, which I'd moved up close to Cairo. I am considering, and this infantry brigade in the 1st Engineering Corps has actually grown to full size. It's 20. Hebert's got 2,800 men. So I'm considering recruiting another small size brigade for the 1st Engineering Corps. I don't want to disestablish him because he's already got his engineer and mechanics perk. And he's also got another perk available. I don't quite know what I want to put there. Maybe Siege. I don't know. So I'm thinking about transferring a new brigade, small brigade, into the 1st Engineering Corps, and then using this enlarged brigade combined with these guys, and I think I've got enough for another little corps here to come over here and take Cairo. I brought Bear up here because I had this idea maybe he can just walk in and take Cairo himself, and I think he could. But then he, if some Union army comes along down through here, he would not be able to defend. But I think that will all have to occur in the next episode. If you like what we're doing with the channel, you like the content, then leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe. But at any rate, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it.